Java Servlets and JSP. 1. Introduction. What is a web application? A web application is a set of web pages that are generated in response to user requests. A web application is a type of client-server application. The user works with a web browser at the client computer. The web browser provides the user interface for the application. A web application runs on the server computer under the control of web server software. For most web applications, the server computer also runs a database management system. Oracle and MySQL are two of the most popular database management systems. What is HTML? Hypertext Markup Language, HTML, is the language that the web browser converts into the web pages of a web application. What is a static web page? A static web page is an HTML document that's stored in a file and does not change in response to user input. Static web pages have a file name with an extension of HTML or HTML. What is HTTP? Hypertext Transfer Protocol, HTTP, is the protocol that web browsers and web servers use to communicate. A web browser requests a page from a web server by sending the server a message known as an HTTP request. A web server replies to an HTTP request by sending a message known as HTTP response back to the browser. What is a dynamic web page and how does it work? A dynamic web page is an HTML document that's generated by a web application. Often, the web page changes according to parameters that are sent to the web application by the web browser. When a web server receives a request for a dynamic web page, the server passes the request to the web application. Then the application generates a response, such as an HTML document, and returns it to the web server. The web server wraps the generated HTML document in an HTTP response and sends it back to the browser. Lists of some specifications described in Java E. Servlet. Java Server Pages, JSP. Java Server Faces, JSF. Java Persistence API, JPA, Servlet, JSP, is a lower-level API that does less work for the programmer. Provides a high degree of control over the HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Servlets store the Java code that does the server-side processing, and Java Server Pages, JSPs, store the HTML that defines the user interface, includes links to CSS and JavaScript, JSF. JSF is a newer technology than Servlet, JSP, that provides a higher-level API that does more work for the programmer. With JSF, it's more difficult to control the HTML/CSS/JavaScript. Spring Framework. Spring Framework is a higher-level API that does more work for the programmer. It provides a high degree of control over the HTML, CSS, JavaScript. What is Java EE? Java Enterprise Edition, Java EE, specification that describes how web servers can interact with all Java web technologies including servlets, Java Server Pages, JSP, Java Server Faces, JSF, Java Persistence API, JPA, and Enterprise Java Beans, EJB. What is JPA? Java Persistence API, JPA, is an API for working with databases. It can be used with Servlet, JSP, JSF or Spring. What is Enterprise Java Beans, EJB? Enterprise Java Beans, EJB, can be used to define server-side components, the architecture for a typical Servlet, JSP application. 1. Presentation layer. HTML files, JSP files. 2. Business rules layer. Servlets, Java Beans, other Java classes. 3. Data access layer. Data access classes, web servers for Java web applications. Tomcat, Glassfish, Wildfly, formerly JBoss, Jetty, Oracle WebLogic, IBM WebSphere. What is a servlet? JSP engine. A servlet, JSP engine is the software that allows a web server to work with the servlet, JSP. Popular servlet, JSP engines are Tomcat and Glassfish.